Hi, welcome to our podcast. My name is Abby Twomlow, psychologist, psychotherapist, and workplace wellbeing practitioner.
Hello, and I'm Andrew Farquharson, and I'm most of those things that Abby mentioned there.
So, this week on our podcast, we are discussing self esteem and confidence at work. Um, and particularly, we're going to be looking at some myth busting, aren't we, around self esteem this week? And I suppose one of the biggest things is why self esteem isn't set in stone, and also how it impacts people in the workplace. It's a big problem, I think, a lot of the time.
Yep, that's right. I mean, I've lost track, I suppose, on the number of times that I've worked with clients, or when I used to work in a sort of corporate environment, people said like, "Well, I just don't have the confidence," meaning I don't have the self-esteem was not good enough to do whatever it is, or it's yeah, or it's I'm just who I am. It's sad really because there's often that sense of a sense of resignation, that look. It's just the way I am. My eyes are blue, or green, or whatever, that sort of thing, and everything is unchangeable.
And it creates that imposter syndrome as well. And I think a lot of people in the workplace, whatever level they're at, have got that kind of imposter syndrome. And the problem when it comes to that confidence and self-esteem is it has a big impact on how well you communicate. It can impact your performance. Um, it can impact your skills as a leader and also your well-being as well, because it means that you go home and you worry about whether you've been good enough or whether you've done a good enough job as well. So it can impact your life outside of work as well, I think, and make you worry about things that just don't need worrying about.
Yeah, that's very true, and it does impact in all those areas, um, which then has a sort of spiral effect because things like, well, our old friend confirmation bias comes in, and because uh, we don't think we're good enough in some way, then something doesn't work out for us, and that proves the fact that we're not good enough, and so it just sort of spirals down.
Yeah.
But the good news is, um, most of the things we think about self-esteem are actually myths.
Well,
Uh,
they're only true because we make them true. So I suppose that key one, isn't it, that self-esteem is fixed. Most people think that self-esteem is just, like you say, part of who they are, part of their personality, or as a part of them as much as their eyes are blue or they're
mhm.
5'6" or whatever it is. Um, and I suppose you make it true by believing that in itself. Um, and that's just not true at all, is it? It's a complete myth
Yeah.
because self-esteem actually is quite changeable, and people's self-esteem is different on different days. If I asked you how you were feeling when you were lay on a beach somewhere hot and sunny with a cocktail in your hands, you probably have really good self-esteem.
Oh, not me. I'd just say no, no, I'm terrible time. No, but you're right. You're right.
Or if I asked you after a busy day at work where things hadn't gone to plan, then it's probably going to be quite low.
Yeah.
But I suppose the issue with that at the same time is that you are basing your self-esteem on things that are happening outside of yourself, those external influences. And
Hmm.
that is true for most people, but only because that's what they believe. Um, but yeah, self-esteem is quite fluid and quite changeable because of the thoughts and beliefs you've got about yourself at any given moment. It all comes from your self-talk. So yes, if you're saying, "Oh, I feel awful because I've had a terrible day," then you are making that the case.
As you said, self-esteem is what you think of yourself, your own self-worth. The interesting thing about that is it's got nothing to do with intelligence or creativity or compassion or any of those sorts of things. Because if you think about it, if if you've got lots of self-esteem, then things like your intelligence and caring and compassion sort of shine out and seem to work for you. If you feel you've got really, or if you think you've got low self-esteem, then all of those things like intelligence and caring and compassion and creativity just go out of the window. You don't see them.
Mm.
But actually, you're exactly the same person, whether you've got high self-esteem or low self-esteem.
Yeah, and I suppose self-esteem is a skill set as well. It's something that you can take control of and have an impact on and build yourself, isn't it? But I suppose in terms of workplace, which is how we're looking at it today, and what that looks like, especially if you're a leader and you're not sure about whether your employees have got good self-esteem or not, you might have somebody that's really confident when you're working with them one-on-one or chatting to them, but they suddenly clam up and freeze in a meeting and they have nothing to say.
That-
That in itself proves that it's just situational, because if you felt like that, you'd be like that all the time. And they only feel like that because of that inner voice in their head with people, worrying about what other people are going to think, or their own self-worth, that what they say isn't valuable.
Yeah, that's exactly true, and that's a very common sort of area in the work.
That kind of brings us on to that second myth, isn't it, about believing that your self-esteem is determined by other people. Because again, we often create our own self-value or our own self-worth from either being praised by other people or having that validation or approval from somebody, whether that's a leader or a peer or your family, or on a more personal level. But
Mhm.
that external thing is quite a swift and passing thing. And if you're only going to rely on what people say, or even worse, what you think people think, and you've got no evidence for whatsoever, then your self-esteem is going to be all over the place.
Yeah.
And that can leave you feeling quite unstable, I suppose, because you're constantly waiting for somebody to say, well done, before you can have any confidence about something. So that real confidence has to come from within and your own thoughts and beliefs about yourself, rather than waiting for other people to validate things for you all the time, because that just doesn't have a lasting effect. It lasts for a short time and then it has to be done again and
Mhm.
again and again. And it's unrealistic, really, isn't it?
Yes.
That self-esteem was the reason that I left teaching, and that my self-esteem spiraled down quite similarly, because I suppose I had that belief about being judged by others. So actually, when I was in the classroom on my own with my children, I was a perfectly competent teacher and I really enjoyed it, and I was very confident at what I did. Soon as anybody else walked into that room, especially anybody who I deemed to have any kind of authority, so the head teacher or an Ofsted inspector or somebody from another school, I would absolutely go to pieces. And that wasn't about that other person, really. It had nothing to do with them. It's not that they ever criticized me or said anything terrible about me. It's just that I presumed, because I had low self-esteem, that they would think I wasn't a very good teacher. And then I started to get anxious, and then I started to overthink. Then that had a physical impact on my body, and I started getting nervous and twitchy. And I absolutely fell apart to the point where I just could not cope with anybody going into my classroom. And ultimately, it led me to leave teaching, because my confidence just got worse and worse and worse. Because every time that happened, I built on that belief that I wasn't good enough. I felt not good enough because I fell to pieces. And it kind of just made that belief bigger and bigger until I completely crumbled and left. So, yeah, ultimately, that's the whole reason that I left teaching.
Yeah. And it's teaching's loss.
Thank you. Well, I'm still in schools now, and we do, we train teachers as well as businesses, don't we?
Yeah.
So I hope that I can make other teachers not feel that way, because I think actually it's quite common in teaching, which is
Mhm.
sad. We've got so many teachers that just don't feel good enough constantly. Um, but yeah, that's a story for a different time. So, shall we have a look at some sort of practical tools? Maybe three things that people can do to try and, well, not to try, to build their self-esteem and to take control over it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to start?
Yeah. So I think one of the first things we need to do is, particularly at the end of the day or throughout your day, I think we're so honed in on all the things that have gone wrong, that we've not done well, that have not gone to plan, that those negative thoughts create a negative feelings and they build on those negative beliefs. So maybe start noticing some positives. And I don't just mean great big grand things that have happened in your day, like big winning deals and stuff like that. It's the tiny little things that count. the things that you'd normally write off. So maybe make a note of one or two, three, one or one, two or three things that have gone well in your day. It might be how you've handled something. Maybe you spoke up at a meeting or gave your opinion without worrying about it. Maybe you took a step back and felt confident doing that. Any of those things. Just jot a couple of things down that have gone well in your day. And it will make you realize that actually you're more confident and more able than you think.
And to build on that one thing, when you've got something down that's a positive, and believe it or not, you'll have far more positives in a day than you think. In fact, most of your day will be positive. However, when you've jotted down a few things, then ask yourself a question. Why does that positive matter? What is it? Sort of dig a bit deeper into it. Um, why why do you feel it's a positive? Could it be because you actually communicated something well, or it was a demonstration of your kindness, or just it chimed in with your own values, whatever it might be, just sort of dig a little deeper into it so that yeah, it just makes it bigger as opposed to, oh yeah, it was a nice flower.
Yeah, and ask yourself as well, like what it tells you about yourself,
Yeah,
that actually you do have a bit more confidence than you realized, or you are able to tackle things. And then I think if the whole point of writing it down is that you can then plan to do more of it. You can perhaps notice those repeating patterns of behaviors of what makes you feel good, those things that lift you or make you feel confident. And when you become aware of those things, you can do more of those things. And
yeah.
naturally, you can sort of be a bit more intentional about planning to do more of those things that make you feel good and confident. And that will build those more helpful beliefs and that self-worth, that value as well.
That building of those things over time, the positives in life, and why they're positive. You could look at it like you're adding a little pebble to a jar, and then at the end of the week, you see that your jar's half full, and then you notice I said half full and not half empty, and then a few days later, your jar's full, so you have to get another jar and just keep doing that type of thing.
Yeah, topping it up. I mean, I suppose that's very much on an individual basis, isn't it? But what about whether we're looking at businesses or schools? What about from a leadership point of view? How can, we're talking about needing that external validation. And I think actually that's how leaders ultimately try and improve people's self-esteem is to give them praise. And that is really important. But are there any other ways that leaders can sort of support and build self-esteem? I'll say that bit again. Is there any other way that leaders can support their team and support self-esteem without just sort of lapping positive praise on people?
Yes. Oh, right. Okay. Does set the whole tone in a work environment. And it's not just about self-esteem, it's about lacking confidence, it's about all sorts of things. And as we'll talk in other episodes, in a sense, we're talking like about an internal corporate self-esteem.
Yeah,
So
making it part of it's making it part of the ethos, isn't
that,
it? And
that's
doing
right.
it well because actually, for lots of things, I'd say you've got to lead by example, and that's kind of true for this. But I also think that for somebody lower down in your team looking at you, that can be quite intimidating as well. So you having good self-esteem doesn't necessarily help somebody else to improve their self-esteem, but it is in the interactions between you and those other people that will help. And like I say, it's not about just lavishing praise on people. Um, so I don't know, some hot tips on that, I guess, would be offer recognition that's really specific to that person. So, oh, you're you noticing that and suggesting that has really saved us today. Like that was a really good point that you made there, and being really specific about something because it shows that you've paid attention to that person. And yes, that is an external validation for them, but it's quite personal as well, rather than just being quite generic.
the general language around the office or the work environment. It's again leaders that set the tone on that. The self-talk of the organization, the
Yeah,
people within it, not always putting people down or sort of bullying talk and that sort of thing.
or
Um,
blame. I think blame's a big thing as well,
Blame, that's right.
and that's a big one from leadership. But yeah, like you say, if you're modeling that healthy self-talk and using that in control, confident language, then people that will rub off on people.
Mhm.
And also, I think it will help you to um, get people to reflect on themselves rather than just talking at them all the time. If you're somebody that has that healthy self-talk, it makes it easier when you say, well, what do you think went really well? Or I think you did brilliantly, but what did you think? It will that language changes the pattern in the way that you speak to people and will make them think differently about themselves.
Yeah. And in a sense, it's that ability to be able to make a mistake and not be feel that you're going to get totally castigated for it or put down or something. We all make mistakes. Uh,
Yeah,
and in fact, a mistake is a learning point. It's something that we can take. So, for instance, I mean, just a very simple thing to say in the office self-talk is if you try to explain about something, you say, well, what went right and what could be done better, as opposed to what went right and what went wrong.
yeah. Or what would you do differently next time? Or what
Yeah,
would you do
what would you do
differently if it happened
differently? That
again?
sort of thing. And it engenders all sorts of things.
Well,
So
and it also encourages, by asking that question, it encourages that person to use their imagination in a positive way, which means that they're much more likely to deal with it better next time rather than going to pieces.
yeah,
um, and it makes them feel a bit more capable because your brain doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. So if you're getting that person to imagine something going well, it's much more likely to go well, which is why
mhm,
self-esteem matters, isn't it? Because when you've got a confident team, then they are more productive, they are more resilient, they collaborate better, they're more innovative. There's such a big impact to your team having good self-esteem and being confident, and that's not the same as arrogant as well. I think that's something to point out.
mhm,
Good self-esteem is not the same as arrogance. They're two very, very different things.
mhm. In fact, very often people who are extremely arrogant don't actually have that great self-esteem.
No, that's true, and they need that external validation much
Mhm.
more, isn't it? Which is why they're arrogant, because they need that response from other people. They can come across as quite bolshy and boisterous, but that's because they're constantly seeking that response from external people.
To wrap up, I suppose we could say, well, self-esteem is not fixed.
Hmm.
It's not set by others. It can be built. We can change it bit by
Yeah.
bit every single day. Um, and it's us that do it.
Yeah, it comes from ourselves, doesn't it? And don't forget about that. Just jotting down two or three things in your day that have gone well. Those tiny positives all add up. If they are pebbles in your jar, as you put it, those
Yeah,
little things all add up. Don't wait for big, massive things because your jar will take forever to fill. And it's about, as Tesco say, every little helps, don't they?
indeed. And that
um,
that's true.
So there'll be a new episode coming out next week.
Yes,
We are
that's right.
looking at self-esteem in the workplace really throughout September. So we'll kind of build on our discussion today. So if you don't already, please give us a follow and keep your eye out on social media. We'll post our um, podcast generally by the end of the week. But if your workplace is ready to boost confidence and improve well-being and get a team that is confident with good self-esteem, that is exactly what we're here for, isn't it? We
Yeah.
help teams to build that for themselves. We help leaders how to do that um, and boost those things in the workplace. So if you think that you would be interested in how we can help you in your business, please do get in touch. We're always happy to chat to new people.
Yes. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye bye.
Thanks for joining us. Bye.